Hey there, I'm Thea Dudley, also known as the Credit Overlord, and welcome to LBM Talks Credit. We are the only podcast that talks trade credit in the lumber and building material space. Never miss an episode, stay tuned, and we're glad you're here. Well, my friends, welcome back to LBM Talks Credit. I'm Thea Dudley, also known as the Credit Overlord, and here's where we tackle the wide world of credit management and why it matters way more than people think. Now, today I've got an amazing couple of guests I'm so excited about. I could not wait to get them on here and talking about their experience. These are people who traded their outsourced credit management for in-house credit department. So Amy Wallace of Wallace Building, fearless LBMer who decided to take control of their credit lending, along with Alexis Petrin, who she drug along for the ride and agreed to go with it. Ladies, welcome.
Thank you so much for having us.
Oh gosh, I've been so excited about this one. And before we get rolling, congrats, Amy. 40 under 40. Go, girl.
Thank you. I'm so excited. It's such an honor.
So let's talk about your experience, because when you guys first looked at the credit department, I kind of want you to take us back a little bit. Start at the beginning. You know, why did you decide to stop outsourcing your credit department, that credit function? And then I guess tell everyone a little bit about Wallace Building so they kind of get what you were dealing with.
All right. So a little bit about Wallace Building. It started out as my husband and his dad. They actually branched off from another family company that had been going since the 1930s. It's still there. But my husband, Cody, who's also LBM 40 under 40, him and his dad, they wanted to branch off and do their own thing. So they started this store, and it's been going now since 2013. Is that right? I believe. And so it's going really good. But, you know, we had always just kind of went with so somebody comes in, wants credit, and, you know, we'll ask, you know, somebody that knows them, are they good for money?
They're a friend of a friend. It's like
they're good for it. Yeah, they've got it. Yeah. And we were like, okay, well, we'll extend you some credit then. And it wasn't working, because we had gotten beat by somebody that we didn't think that we would ever get beat from. So that kind of prompted us to do the outsourcing.
So before we jump into that, that's always the way. And I know that's our mantra in credit is everybody pays you till they don't. And, you know, it surprises you sometimes who didn't pay you. And it's not because they're not, you know, they could be great people, but they find themselves in positions they, you know, never expected.
Oh yeah.
And pay you with them.
Yeah. This guy was somebody that, you know, we had considered a friend, and he had just way overextended himself, and we were the ones that got stuck holding it. So it scared us because it was a good amount of money. It was about $80,000.
Well, that's a big hit.
Yeah. So we ended up being able to recover about half of it, but it hurt. So that it scared us. So that's when we started looking for the outsourcing. But the reason we decided to stop the outsourcing was...
So how long did you outsource for?
We outsourced for about 4 years.
Okay.
We had signed a year contract with them initially, and then went on to sign a 3-year contract with them.
Okay.
So we did it for about 4 years, and for a while it worked.
They were bought out.
Yeah, they were bought out.
That was kind of the biggest. One of the bigger issues was the first company we liked. When they were bought out by a bigger company, that's when it kind of went downhill.
Yeah.
Kind of changed. Any specifics that you want to, you know, without getting into the nitty gritty, it's like, hey, these were the changes that, you know, this is what was a major factor for us.
Probably the biggest factor was that we all know that in the construction world, you have a signature on the credit account, but as far as a signature on each individual invoice, it just does not happen. The contractor calls in and the order gets dropped. They're not there when it's dropped. And the company before, you know, understood that and was okay, but the company that bought it out was not. And so we got charged back for a lot of money. because they wouldn't, it was in their fine print that they wouldn't do that if there wasn't a signature on the invoice itself, not just on the credit application, but on the invoice itself.
Okay, so that was like a major change of how we're going to market. It's like, look, this wasn't our original agreement.
Yeah.
I'm sorry you don't understand our industry better, but that's rarely going to happen when you get a signature when you're dropping in a job site.
Yes. Yeah.
And that was, I think, the only time that we had tried to get money back from a customer. A customer hadn't paid us, and we said, hey, this customer's not paying. We need to, take steps. And they were like, well, too bad. We're not going to, just.
Yeah. And charge back the full amount to us. So
that's your responsibility.
Yeah.
So okay, so now we know that you used to like it, and now you're frustrated with it, and you're like, I think we're going to make some changes. So how did it come about where you're like, well, you know what? I think we got this.
It was a process.
Yeah, a really
so what was that process like for the two of you?
It was a lot of searching. To begin with, it was really even, are we going to do this? Are we going to be able to do this? Because to begin with, taking control of the credit seemed like this big monster, and we were scared of that. I mean, we didn't know that we could do that.
Well, the whole point of the third party was protection for us.
Yeah, it was safety.
It was, they had lawyers, they had they could do it all. They could handle the bad debt. And if we're paying all that money for that one reason, and then they say, oh, too bad, every time you file a claim, what's the purpose of paying all that money? So.
But and it was expensive, by the way. It was very expensive.
Insurance always is. Yeah. And I understand outsourcing comes with some risks. Yeah. And, there's pros and cons to both. I mean, like you said, it's scary when it's your name going, yes, I am approving this account and for this amount of money. And you're like, this dude better look as good on paper or, in person as he does on paper. He better be paying these bills. That is a tough one. It's your butt on the line. And those are really hard decisions. So it's nice to have a backstop where, hey, we've got this big machine behind us that's helping execute all of this.
Oh yeah, that was something definitely that we loved. I mean, it was, when a customer would come in complaining about the credit limit that they got or complaining that they couldn't get more credit, we could blame it on the outsourcing company because they were the ones that were handling it. They were the ones that decided whether or not they got credit and how much credit they got. So we could be like, oh, I'm sorry. They won't let us give you any more credit. I'm so sorry about that. We could be the good guys. They could be the bad guys.
It is nice to have someone to blame. It's like, oh, our bank restrictions won't let us do, honey, if it were up to me, you're good as gold here, but those guys, they don't know that. So, I mean, yeah, it is nice. So you decided, all right, we got to move on from this because it's a lot of money and they're not performing like they used to. We're not this relationship. I think we've outgrown each other.
Yeah.
So now you started looking around, and then what happened?
So the first thing we did was I stalked you. Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah. And then we just kind of started looking into what we would need to do. A big driving factor actually was something that our customers liked was the online payment system that the outsourcing company had. And we knew that if we, went away from that, we didn't have an option for an online payment system. So around the same time as taking on our own credit, we also completely changed systems.
Entire POS system.
Yeah, it was a big undertaking.
Oh, you guys really did go. When you decided to go, you went all out.
Yeah. Yes. I kind of, she just handles all my harebrained ideas.
What's so cool is that you guys have each other to bounce stuff off of because, you got Cody who's running the overall business and you've got to have someone to backstop with and be able to have those conversations and say, look, this is what we've done so that you can continue to move forward as a company because you can't have a bottleneck where you're waiting for just one person to be able to do everything.
Oh yeah, it definitely helped having someone to bounce stuff off of. I mean, we talked about it constantly, figured out all of the the options that we had. So we looked at our, getting a new system. We started figuring out, well, we're going to need a credit application because the credit application that we had been using was for the outsourcing company. We had to figure out different types of credit. Are we just extending commercial credit? Or are we extending consumer credit? Are we doing credit card on files? What all types of things are we doing? It was
a lot of pieces of paper with notes scribbled and and moved them around. And do we want to do this? Do we want to do that? And
it was a long process. I mean, I would say from us first thinking about taking back our credit to it being full blown us doing it was, 9 months to a year. I mean, it was a good process.
But that didn't include the creating of policies and
a lot of that came after.
That was after we had the credit. And we're like, okay, we got this. And then we're like,
no, we don't.
How do we do this? Come Monday, what do we do? And do I just say, hey, pay me that money? And we had nothing. So I think that was another. Months, 6-7 months at least.
I would say, once we got in there, figuring out what we still needed to figure out.
What questions to even ask?
Yeah.
Like, what are we missing? I handle the day-to-day, everybody coming in, and now Amy gets to be that little cloud in the sky. Amy just won't let you have that credit. I'm sorry.
Well, Amy's working from home now.
I'm just upstairs.
Yeah, I have an upstairs office, so most of the customers don't even see me anymore. They just talk to me on the phone or something, and they're like, that darn Amy, she won't let me do anything.
Just like that big floating head in the sky kind of thing. Where it's like, oh, Amy, she's the devil.
Yeah.
You don't want to talk to her.
She's just really strict.
You think I'm bad. She's just, no. Nope.
Yeah, she gets to blame it all on me now. She's like, I'm sorry, my boss just won't let me do it.
Yeah, I just can't do anything for you.
Okay, so it took, let's say, about a year.
Yeah.
So you're going through and you're starting to put pieces together. You're starting to do your research. You're pulling in different facts, and you're coming up to the end of your time with mom and dad, and you're getting ready to move out.
Yeah.
And when you took that over that Monday, we're going to say it's a Monday that rolled around, what was the first thing when you took control? What was the first piece that you're like, okay, this is what's happening now? We're ready to roll completely, or we're just going to Band-Aid it and figure it out as we go?
It was more Band-Aid it.
Okay.
It was, everything was leaking at one time, and we were just trying to just fix it, and one piece at a time. Like, okay, let's figure out online payments. That was a really big issue Monday morning.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think the thing is that we were trying to tackle a lot all at once. We were trying to tackle the credit side, and then we were also, moving to our new system. So we did have the online. So it was kind of all going on at once. And we also, we had, already established our credit application. We had figured out some of that stuff. But like she said, the policies, we didn't figure that out until months later. We were, doing our statements and we were collecting the money, but if they weren't paying or something, there just wasn't a whole lot of communication, I guess, to begin with, because we didn't know to. So figuring out our policies of, okay, before that next statement comes out, we've already communicated with them this many times, and just having some of that stuff written out of this is what we need to do.
Having a collections agency, that was a big thing.
Yeah.
Setting that up, and when do we want to send them to collections? When do we threaten to send them to collections? There's always that threat email. Hey, you're about to be sent to collections. Let's try to figure this out.
This is going to go badly. Well, but you brought up a really good point. But I do want to point out that there are a lot of companies that, even though they've had their own credit department for a while, they don't have their policies written out. I think about half of the companies that I end up talking to, they're like, yeah, we don't have a policy manual. We kind of just, we do stuff. I'm like, no, you absolutely have policies. You just haven't formalized them. They're just not written down. So you had somebody that here's our rules of the road. Now you have to decide, do I want to keep those rules? Do I want to just implement the same thing? Or do I want to adjust them to see what's going on with our economy and our customers and how we want to go to market a little bit more.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what happened for us. We rolled out doing the credit ourselves, and I mean, it wasn't going badly. It was going okay, but we just started noticing that there was things that were, falling off that we just needed to take care of. And so I think that's where it came in, that we really just sat down together and we're like, okay, we need to figure out our policies on this, because we need a plan. We need a game plan that we can follow.
And it needs to be exact. Like, okay, statements are due, on the 26th. The bills due the 10th. I make emails on the 14th. I start calling on the 17th. Like, we have set, this is what we're going to do. And keeping that line of communication is super important and very, very difficult. Now they get used to it. They're like, oh, it's the 17th. I'll be up there tomorrow.
I still don't have any money here. I'm still trying to. But it is very cool that you guys figured it out in a relatively short period of time where your AR didn't get out of control. So I do want to ask you, what was the biggest challenge looking back on what you did? Because you've been doing it now for how long?
2 years.
It was March of 23.
Yes.
When that was that last statement. So
2 years.
Just over 2 years.
Yeah.
Looking back over those 2 years, what do you think the biggest challenge was in that process? Your biggest challenge, biggest surprise? I mean, what things came out of that you're like, didn't see that coming, or, that was better than I expected, or, oh, okay.
Well, something that I didn't expect is some of the excuses that people will give. That's always interesting to hear their excuse.
It's actually my favorite part of the job.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, how creative can you? No, we don't take Bitcoin. What are you thinking?
Yeah, they come up with some crazy stuff. So that's been interesting. Because before, with the outsourcing, we really weren't hearing that. The outsource company was the one that was hearing all of the excuses. So that was fun.
What surprised me is they know they charge the money. They know, I charged $50,000 this month, but do I really have to pay that? Like, is that a thing I have to do right now? And it surprised me. It surprises me how often customers are just like, is that really important right now? I've got houses to build. I've got things to do. Do I need to worry about this? And I'm like, yeah,
you kind of do.
I need you to worry about it if you want to build the next house with us. That's the weirdest part to me.
That is really funny, where it's, well, I've been really busy. I didn't have time to look at your bill. It's like, can I try that with my mortgage company? It's like, listen, I've been super busy. I'm going to get to you because I don't think it's really important. You're cool with that, right? They never are, by the way.
Yeah.
You're like, well, you can pay late, but let me tell you about the back charges let me tell you the interest rates you're going to pay. And then let me tell you how that's not going to fly for very long. There's no forgiveness or love there.
No.
So I agree with you.
Yeah.
And the finance charges themselves. People think they're the craziest thing.
Oh, they're totally optional. They think they're totally optional.
You don't have to pay that. Like, it's just there as a suggestion. If you just skip it, don't worry about it.
They're going to throw down on it. It's like, look, I'm paying this bill, but I'm not paying the finance charges. It's like, dude, you paid late. I'm okay forgiving you for paying late, but there's a penalty to that. You think I'm getting free money? I got to borrow against our line of credit.
Yeah. A day late, I can waive that. If you haven't paid your bill for 6 months, there's some fines there.
Yeah.
I love that. It's like, nope, we are not doing that. Oh, so those are some big challenges that come up that, most people, unless you've done this job for a little bit, you don't get to hear some of those things. And you just think that people can't possibly say things like that. And they do.
Yeah. And something too that I felt like it was kind of a personal challenge for me was that I did become the big guy in the sky, the one that had to say no and all of that. So that was something that I had to learn how to do. And I'm still learning. I mean, sometimes
okay, so I'd like to dive into that a little bit more.
Okay.
That's a hard thing, and that's one of the biggest challenges for people going into that credit and collections arena. It goes against your natural human nature. Human nature is, hey, I want people to like me. I'd like to get along with everybody. And confrontation is not something everybody's okay with. And so when you do confront, it's like, oh my God, you're so confrontational. Like it's not that I'm confrontational. I just know that if I don't deal with it, one, there's nobody else that's going to do it. And I'm just going to kick this can down the road. I might as well just do it now and get it over with.
Yeah, it's something that I had to learn. And like I said, I'm still learning it. There's still instances where I'm like having to psych myself up for it. That phone call that I know is going to be no fun. I definitely think it helps too that I'm upstairs and can kind of be a little bit removed.
I live for the confrontation.
She does.
Let me tell you, let a customer come in yelling at one of my guys. I will go out there. I love it so much.
Yeah, Alexis, I love that about you. It's like, we're not doing that.
No.
I just, hey, bring it down about 2 notches. We're not going to have a screaming thing. I understand you're upset. I'm upset too. I don't have any money. I know you're upset because you're on hold, but it's not just because I spin the big roulette wheel in the sky and it's like, this guy came up, his number today, we're going. That's not how this works. Honey, you had full control over this relationship. So I love that you're like, yeah, I don't got a problem with it. I'm going to deal with it because somebody's got to do it.
Both of us actually got into a big battle with one customer he was so upset because his credit limit was not high enough. And after both of us got a hold of him, he did a catered lunch for the entire store as his apology because we were like, that's not happening.
Yeah.
Like, because he pitched a fit with everybody, every employee on this campus. I guess it's not a campus, but
after all of this,
it could be a campus. You guys are learning every day. So.
Yeah. After all of this, he just got so ugly on the phone and I was like, this is not happening. You don't have a credit line with us anymore. I'm so sorry. And that was that because too much.
It was probably our worst one.
Probably
as far as confrontation wise, like he was bad.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that happens to everybody in business at one point or another. And one of the biggest challenges is, look, I can work with anyone and I want to work with you. I want to keep your business, but you coming in here yelling and screaming, that's not us finding a resolution. That's just you being a bully.
Yeah.
But if you want to sit down and talk about your credit line and, hey, I need a larger credit line, let's talk about how to make that happen. I will bend over backwards to help you because I want your business too. That's why we're in business. It's not just because I needed somewhere to go all day. We're here to sell materials, but let's be adults about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So once you get through that first one, you're like, okay, I've survived that.
The next one was a little easier. Yeah. Getting through that first one was.
You have that point of reference now. So, we talk about hope is not a credit tool in credit management, and using that analogy where it's like, oh, we're just going to, hope for the best. It's like saying, hey, I'm hoping termites, we'll just get bored and leave our lumber alone. It's just, it's not going to happen. Once you have something going downhill, it continues to go downhill. So if you could look at this entire process, do you have a biggest regret or a biggest, hey, I would have done this differently?
I feel like probably one of our biggest regrets is that we did some stuff the hard way instead of just asking more questions. I feel like maybe if we had asked more questions in the beginning, even though we did ask a lot of questions, I feel like I bugged you quite a lot.
I loved it. It was really actually really fun because it reminds you of stuff that, like, when you've been doing it for a really long time, you take things for granted. And so hearing someone go, okay, let's take it back down to, ground level here and start building up. You're like, oh my gosh, yeah, I forgot about that. So It was just as educational for me.
Oh, well, good. I don't know. I feel like we might have gotten through some stuff a little bit easier if we'd have asked more questions in the beginning.
I think we also thought that we had to handle everything.
Yeah.
It was us two against everybody out there. We didn't want to, it's almost like, the collections agency, that was the one that I thought of. We did not want to have a collection agency. We didn't want to do it. We didn't want to send nobody to collections because it was like we failed.
Yeah, it was almost like a failure that we couldn't do it ourselves.
Customer. We couldn't get that money. We had to get somebody else to do it. And realizing that having a collections agency is not not a bad thing. It's not a big deal. Doing a lien is not a big, it's not a bad thing. It's not a big deal. It's just things that have to be done. Because we can't get every customer to pay every bill. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah. We were very hard on ourselves.
Those are challenges that I know lots of credit people. I struggled with it early on where, by God, no one's going to take that. I am going to go after every dime. If I can't collect it, it's not collectible. And then at some point you realize you need to put your cape away. It's not a judgment against you. And there's only so much time in the day. So I can't track everybody down. I can't force somebody to pay me. Here are the levers I have. I can small claims court it. And as much as I love a good small claims court rodeo, because those things are just amazing. If you haven't had the opportunity, totally do it. But it takes time because you're the de facto attorney. You're building, you're having to put everything together. You're having to take the time to go to the court. You're having to do all those things. And sometimes you're like, okay, the money's small enough, or, it's too big for small claims court, but not big enough for us to hire an outside attorney. This is what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and send it to the collection agency. And then it's a whole process of finding who you want to work with, because there's so many out there and everybody says, oh, I'm the best. And it's like, are you, it's got to be somebody that you click with.
Yeah, most definitely. I think finding that was really good for us. And there's been so many times where I haven't even needed to send them to collections. It's just having that collections there that I can threaten. I'm like, look, if you don't pay me by this date, we are sending you collections, and I'm not even going to think twice about it. And they're like, oh, I'm so sorry. Here's your money.
It's amazing how fast it happens.
It does.
We had one, you sent an email, 7 minutes that payment was online.
Oh, wow. That's a record.
7 minutes.
7 minutes. She went online and paid the bill. And I was like, why couldn't you have just done that before I had to get ugly and threaten collections?
That's another one of those questions that just kind of hang out there where it's like, did we really have to take our relationship to this level? Because now I know who you are. I have to be ready to just like smack you before you do what you're supposed to do.
Yeah. I will say, though, I am pretty proud of that particular account because when we came off of our outsourcing company, shortly after, they were one that was building with us a lot. They had a really big credit limit, but it was shortly after we got out of the outsourcing company, they stopped paying. So they stopped paying on $100,000. I mean, it was so pretty scary.
Your heart is now down in your butt, like where it's just going, oh my gosh, did we screw up? Oh, I hate this.
Yeah. I mean, we had just started and they just stopped paying and I'm like, oh my gosh. But we've been very persistent with them. We've stayed in contact with them and we've got it down to now they only owe us $8,000, which I know is
congratulations.
Thank you.
No, that's a big win. I don't put I know behind that because anybody who collects money for a living understands what a win that is and how hard that is to do. And to keep it in house and to work with the customer, that's tough. I mean, that's a very tough thing to do, especially when it's a long-term thing. It's like, okay, we're financing basically a car for these people.
Yeah.
And they've paid every finance charge. They say that every single month. Yeah.
So you didn't do it for free, which is another thing where it's like, sometimes you get a payment plan. Like, I'm just happy to get the original output. I don't even want to think about the other parts.
Yeah.
So I think that's a huge win for you guys. That's definitely like, we're putting this up on our wall.
Yeah. We were very happy about it. Very, very happy.
If we just have I'm like, you have paid over $100,000. There's $8,000 left. Just pay.
You guys are going to totally party when that comes in. It's like,
we really are
celebrating big.
I'm going to cry. I think I'm just going to cry. And
what do you do when you don't see that hanging out there anymore? Well, so if you guys had, if someone's listening and they're thinking of taking, they're in the same situation you guys were a few years ago, and they're looking at it going, hey, I think I would like to, follow that same path. What is your number one piece of advice?
We kind of have two. I'll let you say one. Mine is that trust your gut. There's been so many times that I would second guess and be unsure, but if I'd have just trusted my gut to begin with, it would have been okay. I'm not saying I'm always right by any means, but I feel like you get those stirrings in the pit of your stomach, for a reason. If something's
that gut check factor is real. It's like, I can't show it to you on paper, but I'm telling you, my spidey senses are all over this.
Yeah, there's been times where something has just felt hinky to me, and I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't know why I don't want to do this, but I don't want to do this.
I like the hinky factor. We're just I'm sorry, we're just calling it the hinky factor. Yeah. We're putting that on the credit. We're putting that on the file. We're out.
Yeah. Mine is still going to be not to take it personal. I feel like we took a lot of things personal. Someone didn't pay. It was like a personal hit.
Yeah.
Or if we didn't get something right, like we are like the only thing that's holding this business up. Like if we fail, the whole business fails. And we put a lot of pressure on ourselves that if it wasn't perfect, we were going to go bankrupt. We were going to be homeless. Like it was like a whole, it was like this spiral of everything's going to go wrong if we mess up. And you know what? We've messed up. And we went, oh, that's fine. We learn from it. We move on. We've lost money. We learn from it. We move on. To me, that was the biggest thing.
Yeah.
I think those are both really good pieces of advice, whether you're going to make changes to your credit department or not, just as a credit professional. That's really tough. I mean, those are some tough lessons. All right, ladies, anything else you want to share?
If you have questions, call Thea.
Okay, that was the aiming method. Yeah. Which was actually really fun. It was a great relearning opportunity for me because, when you do something for a really long time, you forget what you just forget what you take for granted as knowledge. And so when someone asks you, you're like, well, you're looking at them like, well, this is kind of common sense. And you're like, no, it's common sense to you, because this is the world you've been living in for a long time. So it gave me an opportunity to step back and kind of relearn and get reacquainted with some things that I hadn't looked at in a long time. So it was just as fun for me watching you guys grow and watching you guys go through this. And then some of the stuff you called with, I'm like, well, that's the challenge of the week. That was really fun. Well, if you want any more of Amy's wisdom, I don't think Alexis is going, but I could be wrong. If you're looking for any more of Amy's wisdom, you can find her at the LBM Strategies Conference this year.
Yes.
And she'll be up there doing her princess way. Or they can certainly reach out to either one of you at Wallace Building. If you guys want to, we'll connect your information down in the episode description below, but definitely wanted to be able to make you guys available because you guys are so amazing. I love everything you did and your approach. And you just got in there. And I loved that entrepreneurial spirit of we're just going to make this happen.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we're pretty proud of it. We're glad that we did it.
Well, you guys, I appreciate you coming on this week. I've been looking forward to this episode, and poor Sally's had to hear about it over and over. Everyone out there, thank you for joining us this week at LBM Talks Credit. You can find a new episode every other Tuesday if you want a little something in between. Sally does the LBM Talks social media on the weeks we're not on. If you're missing us, there's back episodes you can listen to. We're on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. LBM Talks Credit. I'm Thea Dudley, Credit Overlord, and this is the place for practical strategies for trade credit in the LBM industry.